नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन् इति नाम। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna.
So yesterday we were discussing chapter 1 of the way to on the way to Krishna. And anyone like to summarize what we have discussed yesterday in a very few points? Okay, so let me summarize again then. So first of all, we discussed about that everyone is actually looking for happiness somehow or other, but very few people, they know that what is real happiness. And then we discussed about this soul, right? This dead body cannot enjoy. Enjoyment is actually through soul. And uh, and then we discussed about the what is real happiness. This material world it doesn't gives us the real happiness. The real happiness is basically in the spiritual world, right? And then and then after that we discussed about the soul, which is how what the size of the soul and how it resides in the body. And then Prabhupada says about that how this spiritual happiness or blissfulness is ananta, is endless. And once we enjoy the spiritual happiness, we won't look for anything else, right? That's that was basically summarized. The Prabhupada has explained yesterday, and how we discussed yesterday. So let's continue from here. The process. So how we can actually get the real happiness? That's the process one, right? So who would like to read today first? Okay.
So
Right.
the process for establishing oneself in real happiness is this process of Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness, we can gradually develop our real intelligence and naturally enjoy relishing spiritual happiness as we make spiritual progress. As we begin to relish spiritual happiness, we proportionately abundant material happiness. As we make progress in understanding the absolute truth, we naturally become detached from this false happiness. If someone or other one is promoted to that stage of Krishna consciousness, what is the result? तो से पढ़ो श्लोक, शायद मैं ना पढ़ पाऊँ इंग्लिश।
Yam labda cha param labham manyate nadikam tata yasmin stito na dukhena
दुखेना
guru
गुरुनापि
napi vichalati. No,
which
uh-huh.
vichilati
Right, finish that. That's one.
Upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty.
That's it.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So, what do we understand from this passage, this paragraph? Anyone want to say something?
Prabhuji, the more we go into the spiritual, the more we develop love for Krishna, and we become detached from the material things.
Mhm.
We're only happy when we're thinking of Krishna. This momentary happiness means nothing anymore. We're looking for Sat Chit Anand, means
Yeah.
eternal happiness. Hare Krishna.
Yes. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to say something? Okay, so here Prabhupada in a very when a very first line establishes that establishing oneself in real happiness is the process of Krishna consciousness. So by following the process of Krishna consciousness, we actually establishes real happiness, and by that, by getting the real happiness, we proportionately start abandoning material happiness. So the more we get real happiness or release the real happiness or spiritual happiness, we start abandoning the material happiness. The more spirituality goes, the lower the material happiness goes away. So it is basically both work at the same time. It isn't that okay, I want to just give up uh, mental happiness. It doesn't happen like that. When we release spiritual happiness, mental happiness is by default, it goes away, right? We don't seek anymore for that. And that's Prabhupada gave example from this verse 6.22. Yam lavadva chaparam labham. So manyate na adhikam tatah. Yasmin sthito na dukkhena gurun api vichalyate. So upon gaining this, once the person gains things from this, uh, from the relish, the spiritual happiness from Krishna consciousness, then he thinks there is no greater gain. So he doesn't want for any other happiness. And in that position, he is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. Even if we are in the great turbulence, great difficulty, still we are firm and have faith that yes, Krishna is going to save us, isn't it? So we see right now, basically this verse very, very important, because right now we are all shaken by this current pandemic and situation. But having Krishna consciousness within us, we can actually tackle this as well. We can understand that yes, everything happens for by the will of Krishna, and we need to take shelter of Krishna consciousness, of Krishna only. Okay. Okay, so let's read the second paragraph, next paragraph of today. Who would like to read this one?
I'll read it, Prabhuji.
Yes, please.
When one attains that stage, other achievements appear insignificant. In this material world, we are trying to achieve so many things: riches, women, fame, beauty, knowledge, etc. But as soon as we are situated in Krishna consciousness, we think, oh, no achievement is better than this. Krishna consciousness is so potent that a little taste can save one from the greatest danger. As one begins to relish the taste of Krishna consciousness, he begins to see other so called enjoyments and attainments as flat and tasteless. And if one is situated firmly in Krishna consciousness, the greatest danger cannot disturb him. There are so many dangers in life because the material world is a place of danger. We tend to close our eyes to this, and because we are foolish, we try to adjust to these dangers. We may have many dangerous moments in our lives, but if we are training ourselves in Krishna consciousness and preparing ourselves to go home, back to Godhead, we will not care for them. Our attitude will then be dangers come and go, so let them happen. It is very difficult to make this kind of adjustment as long as one is on the materialistic platform and is identifying with the gross body, which is composed of perishable elements. But the more one advances in Krishna consciousness, the more he becomes free from bodily designations and this material entanglement. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I think it was quite clear, and isn't it, that how Prabhupada explains about this material happiness and material name, fame, and beauty, knowledge, what we are seeking for, and on the other end, it's the test of Krishna consciousness. So by testing Krishna consciousness, a person becomes free from the danger, isn't it? All right. And now we discussed about the one verse from Srimad Bhagavad Gita Mahatmaya, that Sokha Bhaya and what Shoka Bhaya Apnoti. So by taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, the Soka Bhaya and lamentation, fear, it actually goes away. Right. So in this material world, we are sure to face dangers. Danger are there to come, because this earth is also called as, dukkhalayam asaswatam. Here we'll have miseries, and it is temporary, asaswatam. And hence, by taking shelter of Krishna consciousness, by taking shelter of Lord Sri Hari, we will understand that danger will come and go away, and Krishna is there to help us as well. Right? Anyone wants to share or have question on this point? So the last line very importantly says that the more one advances in Krishna consciousness, the more he becomes free from the bodily designation and this metal entanglement. Just I was thinking today at one point, like, we try to control things, isn't it? We try to become masters. We try to become a controller. However, I was just thinking, we cannot control even anything, isn't it? We cannot control our breathing. We can't stop our breathing. It goes automatically, right? We cannot control even our senses. We cannot control even our destination. We cannot control about our what we are going to achieve. We just work. If we are destined, it comes to us. Otherwise, no, we don't have any control for that. And we try to, however, we try to control things, isn't it? That's basically bodily designation is. Basically, we want to control, we want to become master of things. Right. Okay. So let's go to the next point. Who want to read this one next?
I will read it, Prabhuji.
Okay, Prabhu.
Um, I think your picture is coming in between.
From here.
Can you go a little bit down? Yep.
Okay.
In Srimad Bhagavatam, the material world is compared to a great ocean. Within this material universe, there are millions and billions of planets floating in space. And we can just imagine how many Atlantic and Pacific oceans are there. In fact, the whole material universe is linked to a great ocean of misery, an ocean of birth and death. In order to cross this great ocean of nescience, a strong boat is needed. And that strong boat is a lotus feet of Krishna. We should immediately get aboard that boat. We should not hesitate, thinking that Krishna's feet are very small. The whole universe is simply resting on his leg. For one who takes shelter of his feet, it is said that the material universe is no more significant than a paddle of water found in the impression of a calf hoof print. There is certainly no difficulty in crossing over such a small paddle. I can't read this sloka.
That's okay. Tam vidya dukha shamayoga viyogam yoga samjitim.
This indeed is actually freedom from all miseries arising from material contact.
Thank you very much. So,
Hare Krishna.
anyone want to share something or any thoughts or what have come and discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam as well from on this point? I remember the verse. It says, Nardeham Sulabam Sudurlabam Guru Karnadaram. So this the spiritual master, the boat to cross this nation, this great ocean of nations. When we take onto the boat, this human body is becomes the perfect boat to cross this metal nations. And in that, if you take the shelter of the lotus feet of spiritual master, who becomes the, what do you say, the one who drives this boat. I forgot what to say in English. Anyway, he becomes he takes the charge of the boat to cross over this metal nations. And in other way, Prabhupada here it explains that This nuisance is very very difficult to cross because it is lot of it's very huge, right? And there are so many universes floating as well. However, when we take shelter of Lord, that whole water, whole ocean, that becomes a small water found in the impression of a calf hoof print, and anyone can cross that hoof print without even knowing, isn't it? When we want to jump or swim, it might get difficult, but we can walk and we can cross this nation as well. That's how, by taking shelter of lotus feet of Krishna, we can cross this nation very very easily, right? That makes sense.
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I have one question.
Yes,
On the
please.
same note, so it says that there are multiple number of universe, multiple number of planets. So is it as one is take birth in one planet in his lifetime? Is it like he may have the chance like he will born on another universe?
Yes, Prabhu, there is no fixed calculation or where it is. We can revolve from different planets, different different species in this whole metal cosmos. That's very very possible as well.
But the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we are reading, is it the stories are based on this universe? I guess.
Not exactly, I'm sure about this, but it defines about not just one universe. It defines about even many Manu's pastimes as well, different millenniums as well, not just one yuga.
But for this planet, right?
I'm not sure on this planet. I Because it becomes so this planet basically it's just in one day there are thousands of Chatur Yoga goes in one day of Brahma, right? So there are so many Manus, 14 Manus passes away as well. So in Manus, the definitely different universes come exist in that, and that get annihilated. And again, when the day of Brahma comes in again, it get recreated, the universes. So uh, I might not be able to say that this is only because of this yoga. It's definitely not for this yoga, because it's from different Manus as well. So about specific to this planet, I'll try to find this answer.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Right. So, however, there are unlimited millions and billions of planets are actually coming out from the porous of Mahavishnu, and they're floating in a space by the energy of Lord Hari, by the energy as well. And it's very very chances that we can go to the different planets, but really that's not the right destination. We wanted to cross this metal ocean and go back to the spiritual world, right? uh, Let me share that screen, and if you can see it again, that how I think we all have seen it earlier as well, but uh, hopefully if I get it, I'll share it. Okay. I see it, but I can't zoom it. Why? Okay, now I can zoom it. Right. So, so can you see this? So
Yes,
this is just one universe where it is more described about the 14 planet system. But if you see on the beyonds like this and this and this and this, there are so many and this light unlimited of universes are actually coming out from the porous of Mahavishnu, right? So we are right now maybe on one, but there are all different, and we do not know what's happening in other ways. Maybe in others, there's some Mahabharata is going on, or Krishna is speaking something lila over the any other planet, so we do not know, right? So that's how it happens. That's why it says it is unlimited universes are coming out from the porous of Mahavishnu. And however, our destination is not this. So we are lying from this. If this is the line of metal universes, and above this all spiritual one. We want to go to spiritual planet anyway. And the topmost one is the Goloka Vrindavan on the middle. Right. Okay. So let's come back to our point here. Yes. So someone please read from here. That's
Can I
okay. If
read?
you cannot read the Sanskrit, we can read translation otherwise. That's okay. Yes, Mataj, please.
We are sorry. We are entangled in this material world due to uncontrolled senses. The yoga process is meant to control these senses. If somehow we can manage to control the senses, we can turn our face to actual spiritual happiness and make our lives successful. Uh, I'll try to read.
That's all. Try it out. Otherwise, we can read the translation.
Uh, Sa nischena yog tatvyo yogo nirvina चेष्टसा सङ्कल्पप्रभवं कमंस् त्यक्त्वा सर्वम् अशेषत मनसेन्द्रियग्रामं विनियम्य समन्तत सन शनैः
Upramita.
उपरमे बुद्ध्या धृति गृहीतय्य आत्मसंस्थां मनः कृत्वा न किञ्चित् अपि चिन्तयेत् यतो निश्चलति मनस्
Chanchalam.
कञ्चलम् अस्थिरं ततो नियम यतैत् आत्मवेच्च वशं नयेत्.
Thank you. Yes, please read the translation as well.
One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all the senses and all sides by the mind. Gradually, step by step, with full conviction, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So basically, in this, in chapters number 6, we will see it. So where uh, the Krishna explains about the yoga practices, yoga process. By basically, the yoga process is to control the mind and meditate on the super soul or Paramatma, and that becomes very very difficult. At the end, Krishna says, yogi nam api sarvesham mad gatinantara atmanam shraddhavan bhajate yomam yome yukta matah. So from all these yogi, the topmost one is one who actually serve me with bhakti. Right. So here, even in this para, basically it's said that how important is to control our mind. So it's been described very nicely in Bhagavad Gita that the mind, and we have discussed it a lot of times as well, the mind can become, the mind is the most or the best friend if it is controlled, and the mind become the worst enemy if it is not controlled. And the mind is the one who is the root cause for making us entangled in this material world. And the mind is the one who can become the instrument for us to go back to Godhead. So that's why here it being written that the mind should be controlled, and that should be controlled by practicing, and by practicing and practicing and practicing. And however, with clear faith and determination, when you try to control the mind, it can be controlled. Even Arjuna says in Bhagavad Gita to Lord Krishna that chanchalam himana Krishna pramadi balavadadam. He says this mind is very very chanchal, right? Very very flickering, very very flickering. So it's very difficult. Even I can control the winds, but mind is very very difficult to control. And in one of the shastra, it's been described that the mind is so flickering that it's compared to like a monkey. And then monkey, not just monkey, he is already drunk. Monkey is itself very, unsteady animal, and that monkey has drunk, alcohol, kind of say, you can say as. And after that, not only just drunk, he has been beaten by scorpions, right? And no scorpion bite is, it becomes, very, fiery in the body. And then he also been beaten by people as well. And that imagine what the condition of that monkey. So that is being compared to our mind. So our mind, that's why is uncontrolled. It goes all the time and thinks so many things, so many things, so many things, right? That's why it's being said that mind should be controlled. And it's not just one day work or one night work. It's basically a gradual process or step by step process. How? With full conviction, and one should become, uh, basically get the intelligence and try to control the mind, right? Any thought process, any question, any concern in that? We have discussed this incident about them very many times, that the mind should be controlled, right? Okay, so let's go to the next part. Who's going to read this one then?
I will let Prabhu.
Yes, please. Prabhu.
The mind is always, it is going sometimes this way and sometimes that way. By yoga practice, we literally drag the mind to Krishna consciousness. The mind strays from Krishna consciousness to so many exterior objects because from time immemorial, life after life, that has been our practice. Due to this, there may be great difficulty in the beginning when one tries to fix his mind in Krishna consciousness, but these difficulties can all be overcome. It is because mind is agitated and not fixed on Krishna that it goes from one thought to another. For instance, when we are engaged in work, memories of events that happened 10, 20, 30, or 40 years ago may suddenly come to our mind for no apparent reasons. These thoughts come from our subconscious, and because they are always rising, the mind is always agitated. If we agitate a lake or a pond, all the mud from the bottom comes to the surface. Similarly, when the mind is agitated, so many thoughts arise from the subconscious that have been stored there over the years. If we do not disturb a pond, the mud will settle to the bottom. This yoga process is the means to quiet the mind and allow all these thoughts to settle. For this reason, there are so many rules and regulations to follow in order to keep the mind from becoming agitated. If we follow the rules and regulations, gradually the mind will come under control. There are so many don'ts and so many do's, and if one is serious about training the mind, he has to follow them. If he acts whimsically, what is the possibility of mind being controlled? When the mind is finally trained to the point where it will think of nothing but Krishna, it will attain peace and will become very tranquil. Prasanta manasam heyanam yoginam sukham uttamam upayati santa rajasam brahma bhutam akalamasmam. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to the past dates. Gita 6.27.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Sorry if I've misread the shloks.
No, that's fine. It will come up slowly. That's fine. So, what do we take from this passage? I think there are a lot of things to take from this passage, isn't it?
Prabhuji, the mind is very difficult to control, but if we practice, we can control the mind. We can have thoughts about Krishna rather than having thoughts about mundane thoughts of nothing. Things which we can't change, such as things which are in the past, we can't do anything about them, and we still keep on holding on to them. And when we give, when we wholeheartedly develop love for Krishna, we become more tranquil. Our mind becomes more tranquil and becomes more peaceful. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for summarizing it again. Yes, nicely. Yes, so that's how it being. It says if you agitate a lake or a pond, all the mud from the bottom comes to the surface. And similarly, when the mind is agitated, so many thoughts arise from the subconsciousness that have been stored in that over years. However, if you do not disturb the pond, the mud will settle to the bottom. So this yoga process is means to quiet the mind and allow all these thoughts to settle down, isn't it? That's a very, very important point. Like, this yoga process is actually by practicing Krishna consciousness, we can settle down our mind. I was listening a lecture today, and it was very, very nicely being described that why Prabhupada, even in starting of Bhagavad Gita or anywhere else, when we describe about any kind of yoga, it comes back to Krishna consciousness. That's the reason. That's the reason in this world. Why? Because practically in Kali Yuga, it's very difficult to follow Ashtanga yoga or Dhyana yoga or Jnana yoga. It literally becomes very difficult. So that's why by practicing Bhakti yoga, which becomes very, very easy and becomes sublime, we can actually realize Lord Sri Hari. And because in Bhakti yoga, it never says that you have to go to Himalaya and do that and this. But as Mahaprabhu says, just by chanting the holy name, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam. And even if it says Brahma Vivasa Puran that iti Sorasakam Nam Nam Kali Kalmasanasanam. So Sorasaka means 16 words Nam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. These 16 words, said by Brahmaji, that this is basically Kali Kalmasanasanam. In this Kali Yuga, it will take away all the kalmasha, it will take away all these bad habits or bad thoughts from our mind, and it will take away all these things. There's just the holy name, right? And that's how by practicing it regularly it will become. Today I'll try to share something. Today I was working, and somehow I was stuck in some of the code, and I was fully focused on that code. And at the time my daughter, 3 years old, Vrinda, she was asking something from me, and literally I was ignoring her, and I was just focusing on the code to fix my problems. And however, she's kid, right? She doesn't understand, and she started shouting more and more and more. And then I had to wake up from my seat and then give her the things what she wanted, and then she became quiet. And then I put back in my focus. Before putting my concentration again on my laptop, I was thinking, oh my goodness, how fully focusedly I am actually working. And when I will get this kind of attention to chant this holy name, that okay, when I sit for chanting holy name, I should not hear anything, no other thoughts would disturb me at the time, isn't it? So that's how, that's basically, we need to think how can we engage ourselves in Krishna consciousness with so enthusiasm that we will finally, this line says, when this mind is finally trained to the point where it will think of nothing but Krishna. So by reading this line, I just came to know by my thoughts in today in the morning. So that's how, and it will give us peace, and it will become very tranquil as well, isn't it? If that makes sense, is that all okay for everyone to move ahead? Or any thought, any questions? Okay, I say I would say that all is okay then. So who'd have to read the next one then? Suchitra Mataji is there, and Pinky Mataji. Anyone wants to read this?
Prabhu, I'll try.
Mataji, no problem.
The mind is always concocting objects for happiness. I am always thinking, this will make me happy, or that will make me happy. Happiness is here, happiness is there. In this way, the mind is taking us anywhere and everywhere. It is as though we are riding on a chariot behind an unbridled horse. We have no power over where we are going, but can only sit in horror and watch helplessly. As soon as the mind is engaged in the process of Krishna consciousness, specifically by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, then the wild horses of the mind will gradually come under our control. We must engage in Krishna's service every moment of our lives in order to keep the restless and turbulent mind from dragging us from one object to another in a vain search for happiness in the temporary material world. Prabhu, I think, can I ask you to do the Sanskrit?
Yeah, that's okay. If you want, you can just continue reading this in our translation as well.
Thus, the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So again, isn't it, Prabhupada, this paragraph makes very, very clear that the mind is again the culprit, isn't it? He's actually looking for happiness, and that happiness we can get when we engage this mind in the process of Krishna consciousness, specifically by chanting this Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's been described very nicely that this five senses, these are compared to the five horses, right? If someone, just imagine if someone is want to travel in a chariot, and the chariot has a five horses, and all the five horses are uncontrolled. Don't have the driver has no control over the reins of the horses. Then do you feel that the passenger will reach his destination? Not possible, because the five horses will fly in five directions, right? And these five horses are called as the five senses, and the driver on the chariot, that's been compared to the mind, right? So that mind should control this chariot. And then this chariot, sorry, the reins of the horse are controlled to the mind, and chariot is as intelligence. So the intelligence should control the mind, and the mind should control the horses. Then this passenger, which is basically the soul, will actually reach to his destination, right? So that's how, by engaging our mind in the process of Krishna consciousness, we can actually gradually bring the wild horses of senses in control, right? Okay, so last one of this passage, who wants to read, or shall I read otherwise? Okay, let me conclude this one. That Krishna serves as a patron for one who is devoted to him. When one is in difficulty, his patron saves him. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is the real friend of every living entity, and we have to revive our friendship with him. The method for reviving this friendship is the process of Krishna consciousness. By practice of Krishna consciousness, mundane passionate hankering will come to a stop. This passionate hankering keeps us divorced from Krishna. Krishna is within us and is waiting for us to turn to him. But we are too busy passionately eating the fruits of the tree of material desire. This passionate compulsion to enjoy these fruits must stop, and we must situate ourselves in our real identity as Brahman, or pure spirit. Right. So very nicely, this chapter started with that everyone is looking for happiness. However, this mental happiness, it's not the destination. It's actually, it is a false happiness, And when we get the real happiness, that is basically getting Krishna consciousness, we can be situated in the right position. And then Prabhupada explains about this, this chapter explains about the soul, very, very briefly about the connection with the soul, that how soul and super soul are connected to each other. They have a loving relationship with each other. And then this chapter says about how to control the mind, and gradually and slowly, by putting effort in Krishna consciousness, we can actually control the mind, and at the end we can actually try to understand that we are uh, our real identity as Brahman, or we are a spirit soul, right? So that's how it chapter 1 ends, and we'll continue tomorrow with chapter number 2. So this basically it will say that the way of chanting and knowing Krishna. How can we chant and know Krishna, right? So anyone have any last or thought question, or anyone to share something? Please feel free to open up. Otherwise, we'll chant one round and finish for today.
Prabhuji, I mean, say, quite a lot of Matajis and people are frightened to read Sanskrit. Look at me. I could not even read Hindi. I tried to read Sanskrit, and it doesn't matter if you make mistakes, but at least you're trying. You have more faith in yourself. If you try, someday you will succeed. Hare Krishna.
That's okay. We can continue. That's fine. Not an issue. Basically, that getting the essence is more important, isn't it? Yeah. So
Yes,
that
Prabhuji, that's true.
yeah, that's why Prabhupada. Prabhupada. That's why he says there is no excuse for reading Sanskrit. If you can't read Sanskrit, I'll show you one example. Let's see Bhagavad Gita. So that's okay. Prabhupada says, no, let's suppose what is example for this first sloka of Bhagavad Gita. And let's imagine if we can't read all this, how it says, but if you see here, Prabhupada has break everything, words by words. So, Dhritarashtra Uvacha, Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, and Samaveta, Yutsava. At least we can get the point that, okay, King Dhritarashtra said, in the place of pilgrimage, in the place of place named Kurukshetra. And then Prabhupada gives translation as well. So, the essence is to understand what the meaning says, and to more basically, not from the head, it goes to the heart of us, right? So gradually we'll see, and we can able to learn read this Sanskrit as well. That's not an issue. But the real essence is, we do not want to become scholar. We want to become a mere devotee of Lord Hari, right?
Great, Prabhuji.
And yeah, if you see, actually, in every book Prabhupada has written, especially this Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and in the last, here, if I'll show you, you can see this, right? Is it visible? So in the see, if you see, open your book, and the last time, pages, Prabhupada says that Sanskrit pronunciation guide, how to pronounce this Sanskrit. So if there's K-A, Ka is K-A, Kha is K-H, Kha, and then Prabhupada says how to mix those language words and read it as well. So gradually it will come up, no problem with that. And what the matra, as how it can be read as well. So if you see, let's suppose, so see this word, right? So when we say a on top of that there's a bar, it means that's a. So it's a ua cha. So anywhere if you see a with matra, it says a, right? And h with a dot, ha, you use savaha, right? So this will, like, if you words you says Dhritarashtra, r comes, a comes as a, right? So that's slowly we will get it. And if Prabhupada writes that how to pronounce this, and like t on a dot on T, pronounced as in tub. So TH as in light heart. So that's how Prabhupada written. So gradually it will come. No worries on that. That's not a big deal. Okay. So let's chant for 10 minutes before we close. So we'll chant three times Mahamantra and then we'll go for one round of Mahamantra. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya,
Prabhu Nityananda
Prabhu Nityananda,
Shri Advaita Gadadhara
Shri Advaita Gadadhara
Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Jai Shri Krishna
Krishna
Chaitanya
Chaitanya,
Prabhu Nityananda
Prabhu
Prabhu
Nityananda
Nityananda,
Shri Advaita Gadadhara
Shri Advaita Gadadhara
Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Shri Vasadi
Gaura
Gaura
Bhakta Vrinda,
Bhaktavrinda.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Jai
Jai
Shri
Shri
Krishna
Krishna
Chaitanya
Chaitanya,
Prabhu Nityananda
Prabhu Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadhara
Shri Advaita
Advaita
Gadadhara
Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Shri Vasadi
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda,
We all can chant at the same time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare